Hello, good morning, and thank you for tuning in again. My name is Simon. I am the Ranting Revolutionary, and I'm preparing a short podcast for you now on crop circles, ley lines, and megaliths, as they are all intimately entwined. And this is just the introduction. There'll be a main video following this, but I have a very long description to add to this podcast so that we do understand and we're speaking the same language. As Plato said, let us define our terms. So there's lots of pictures, lots of diagrams. It's very clearly explained. I've also put in the description 2 podcasts which are essential to your understanding of these fantastic phenomena. So the first one is the Y-Files, which is about crop circles, which will explain to you how far the powers that were went to discredit and debunk crop circles, including setting up Britain's world-renowned expert on crop circles, which you will see in the video. And even when he moved to the States to continue his research in peace, they still sent someone along who pretended that they wanted to work with him, but only on condition that she could use his office. And so it went. Anyway, they tried to set him up and it didn't work. And you will see all that in the Y-Files video. Now, I've been to Stonehenge and Aylesbury many times because my mother used to take us down to our grandmothers, her mothers, at Easter and in the summer holidays when we were school children. And I used to navigate all the way along the A272 and the 303 all the way down from East Grinstead into Little Sidbury down in Devon, and we always used to stop at Stonehenge on the way there and on the way back. And I remember Stonehenge when there wasn't a fence and you could actually walk amongst the stones and touch them. And sadly, because of all the vandalism, there's a big fence around it. But nonetheless, Stonehenge is still wonderful, but there's also Aylesbury and all sorts of other crop circles. In fact, the megaliths and crop circles in Britain, Scotland, the Orkney Islands and Shetland Islands must total about 1,000. And then Ireland is just explosive. I mean, it's about 5,000. In my next video, I will also go into a really good bombshell on what the dolmens were for. So dolmens are 2 big stones, basically, with a T over the top. And they're quite low level, but they're all huge. And for years, no one knew what they were for. But thanks to research in the magnetosphere, and thanks to crop circles and the research we've done on crop circles, we now know what these wonderful structures were for. Now, the second film or podcast is the mathematics that proves that Göbekli Tepe, the pyramids, are wonderful sites in Central, Southern and North America and the North American continent. You have at least 3 main sites, if not 4, that are also on this global international grid. Now, if the mathematics don't convince you, then the symbolism used in these monuments and the glyphs that were left behind will, simply because we have 32 glyphs that are the same worldwide. Then each continent has a subcategory of glyphs that are specific to that continent. Now, we still haven't translated the glyphs yet, but Göbekli Tepe does open enormous possibilities, because Pillar 43, you have the man bags that you see in South America and Egypt and all over the place. You also have at Göbekli Tepe animals that are on the Nazca lines that are very high altitude and can only be seen properly from the air in South America. You then have at Göbekli Tepe 1 life-size statue and 1 short statue of a gentleman who looks just like Captain Picard from Star Trek. I'm not joking. The face is just like it, but he's got the V jumper, the trousers, the booties, and the little symbol on the jumper. And the only thing he doesn't have is his communicator or his phaser. And there's a life-size one of him, and there's also a half-size one of him. And you can see that on other podcasts. And at Göbekli Tepe we also have a whole series of depictions and sculptures of animals that we've never seen on planet Earth, nor have we ever found their fossilized remains, nor have we ever found any skeletons, and that's very interesting. We also have a totem pole at Göbekli Tepe with all sorts of creatures we don't understand, but at the bottom, the one thing we do understand is that there is a human vulva with the head of a baby coming through. So they might be giving us a DNA code somewhere. However, Pillar 43 also has astrological or astronomical alignments. In fact, the two sciences were one and the same at one stage. We are still in the business of decoding it, but it looks like it's making a reference to a 1200-year procession and then a 25,000-year procession, or 24,900 and something. And they're trying to tell us, I think, that this particular alignment, that particular change of procession was when they had to fill the site up because of the Younger Dryas flood. So, basically, with these sites, this is all about mathematics, but spherical mathematics, as we've never looked at it before. And the person to thank for this is Mr. Carl MUNCK, that's C-A-R-L and then M-U-N-C-K. It's absolutely brilliant, and it links up all the sites, all of them. You just have to know and think not like a human. And you have to think from an aerial point of view and a geometric point of view. Now, I've attached a lot of notes to this introduction because in my conversations I found that when we start talking about pi and square roots and various things, I can see the shutters go down and people switching off. But in order to really enjoy and understand the second podcast, if you have just a notion of what he's talking about when he talks about pi, when he talks about pi squared, cubed, the megalithic yard, the foot, the meter, and all these measurements all have fascinating histories, and they are as real today as they were then when these monuments, these fantastic monuments, were erected. And they are all on specific electromagnetic spheres. The polygonal masonry is earthquake proof, which is why it's like that, and it is present in Giza, in the Lebanon, all around Turkey. It's present in South America, very obviously, but it's also present in Europe and in the UK, and it's all very linked to the ley lines and the crop circles. Now the Y-files, because I want to end on a really happy note, you have two wonderful videos, both validated, both taken by proper crop circle researchers. And the first one is an RAF helicopter, Royal Air Force helicopter, trying to chase a silver ore through above a cereal field. And it's quite hilarious because you can see silver orb is laughing its head off as this clunky 20th century technology is trying to keep up. It's absolutely hilarious. The second one is really a total revelation. You have the little silver orb in broad daylight flying over a lovely field of cereal. It could be wheat, barley, rapeseed, it doesn't matter. So he flies over the field, and literally a few seconds later, the crop circle appears. Now, I don't know how much more proof you need, but there is, fortunately, more proof, because when Doug and Dave haven't done the crop circles, the stalks of the cereal are broken at the node, which is a bit like a knee joint but lower down on the stalk, and it's broken by implosion. It's also laid out very nicely. The plant doesn't actually suffer that much because it pops back up, so the farmer can actually harvest the crop afterwards. And when E.T. has drawn his drawings and gone away, the yield is very good. So, yes, and there are electromagnetic frequencies that can be measured after E.T.'s passage. So it is measurable in an objective way. It's not just subjective. Now, I have spent hours researching this subject so I could bring objective, clear evidence to you. And I've also spent a lot of time reading and listening to other lectures. And I can honestly say there's so much gobbledygook on this subject. It's unbelievable. You will, however, be pleased to note that Doug and Dave did have to sue the media outlet that paid them to do these false crop circles. They got half up front and they had to sue to get the other half. I thought, well, that's a wonderful comment of the quality of people who fake crop circles and their sponsors. So that's a wonderful bit of revenge. Now, the subject is very, very large, and just for future reference, because I'll do another podcast on this, recently on the web I saw that at the bottom of the Grand Canyon Egyptian statues have been found, and this is a recent discovery. Well, actually, in 1919, just after the First World War, an architect employed by the National Park Service at the Grand Canyon came across a huge cave within the Grand Canyon, and he was rowing his boat as he went past the cave entrance, which had a gate on it, interestingly enough, and his keys didn't fit, but he managed to open the gate anyway. And inside he found not only beautiful Egyptian relics, but also Tibetan relics, and they were all beautifully stored and lined up. It wasn't Ali Baba's cave in total chaos, and there were wonderful inscriptions on the walls. And fortunately, all this was reported by the papers at the time, and the Smithsonian Institute requested that everything be crated up and sent to them, whereupon it disappeared from the face of the earth, just like the giant skeletons from Catalina Island. And when you phone the Smithsonian Institute, they tell you nothing exists. However, if you try and get back into the cave, everything is blocked. Absolutely everything. You cannot get in. If you attempt, a helicopter will come with a loudspeaker and tell you to go away. You don't have the right. You can go to the Park Service and say, I'd like to sign a waiver so that you can let me in to this cave. And they say, no, it doesn't exist, and even if it did, no way. End of story. So you can see that there was a worldwide civilization. Globalization is nothing new. And it's very interesting that they were a global civilization that disappeared. And to be quite honest, when one looks at what's happening in the world at the moment with scandemics, possible food shortages, sponsored illegal migration, and all sorts of other things going on, it's very, very interesting indeed, as well as worrying. So, worldwide civilization. In 1966, a wonderful author, anthropologist, archaeologist called Thor Heyerdahl, who was Norwegian, built a replica Egyptian boat from papyrus with his friends and researchers, and two of them sailed this papyrus boat all the way from Egypt to South America across the Atlantic. The only Western equipment, modern equipment that they used was a radio in case of emergencies and flares. Everything else, all the food, all the water, was transported and stored, and everything else as per the Egyptian technology of the time. So the water went into pig's bladders, which went up the side and underneath the boat to keep it fresh and cool. And their biggest worry was, in fact, either bad weather and a big wave crushing them, or a nice, curious whale coming along saying hello and not distancing itself further from the boat when it dived. Well, they did have a nice, curious whale, but he did distance himself from the boat. He did dive, and they didn't sink. And they made it all the way to South America from Egypt. And then he repeated the exercise with the Kon-Tiki expedition in Polynesia. Also interesting to note, Captain Cook, who did the most fantastic cartography of the Canadian eastern seaboard to stop the French obviously getting in and giving our Navy and land troops an advantage. When satellite photos came out in the 1960s, they placed those over the maps that Cook had done by hand himself, and they couldn't believe how accurate he was, and all he was using was a square plank, a piece of paper, a pencil, and instead of a flat ruler it was a cube-shaped ruler. And they said the man had to be obsessional to be so accurate. It was unbelievable. But that was the man that made everyone eat limes so they wouldn't get scurvy. Anyway, this globalization is not new, which is nice to know. Anyway, I will follow this up with the greatest of pleasure with far more interesting information, especially the one on the dolmens. That's a real bombshell. And lots of other interesting podcasts that you can watch. But the two that I am attaching to this one, I will attach to my follow-up podcast, but they are both really well worth watching, especially the Y-Files for the debunking aspect. We've debunked the debunkers. And then MUNCK, who makes an absolutely rock-solid mathematical geometric argument for globalization well before we've ever even dreamt of it. So thank you for your time. Enjoy yourself. Do not be daunted by the description, which is 117 pages long. You don't have to read it all, but if you see something that, oh, I'm not quite sure about that, then hopefully it's in there, and that will make it more enjoyable for you. I keep forgetting to say this. Please like, share, comment, or pose questions, and please do subscribe. It really does help the channel. And thank you for your attention, and thank you for your fidelity. See you all soon. Bye-bye.